Well, good afternoon. Happy 2026 to everyone. Thank you very much for joining the Huddle today. I really appreciate you tuning in. As always, it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode for those regular listeners, as you can probably tell you will be able to tell if you're watching this over on YouTube. Myself and Jake, not in our normal environments today. There's no signed jerseys behind me. I'm on holiday, and Jake is back home for the festive period. So different settings, but same old stuff. And I'm sure we'll have the same niche facts about the NFL to bring you ahead of week 18. Big games for a few teams. Most things we kind of know now heading towards the playoffs. It is January. It is the most exciting time of the season for the NFL, except for the two teams, I guess, who make it to the Super Bowl in February. We'll be having a bit of a discussion today about who they might be, a few incentives and the records to be watching out for in week 18. As I said, Jake is joining me again. Jake, just very quickly, how was your Christmas, New Year? All well?
Christmas and New Year was great. If anything, a little bit too great. I'm not really looking forward to the first exercising of 2026. I feel like it's going to be a little bit laborious, but all good. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, all the gym car parks will be full of people trying to do their New Year's resolutions and change themselves in 2026. But we're not going to change. I feel like we're going to be the same as we were in 2025 and have been for quite a considerable amount of time. Let's jump straight into it today, not wasting any time. Actually, I say that. I'm going to backtrack on that immediately because I always make a plug right at the start. Please, if you are listening to this, we do have loads of online content at HuddleUK that's going up every week. We've got the final weeks of the season, or the final week of the season for, is it 18 teams? No. I'm trying to do the maths now. 14 go through. Yeah, 18 teams will be out as of the end of this week. So we'll be having the roundup, sort of the debriefs, what went wrong for all of those 18 teams. So make sure you go to HuddleUK to find that, and please subscribe, smash the bell, all those sort of things if you're on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you may be. And playoffs. Let's get into it. We pretty much know. We spoke about 10 days ago, just before Christmas, and we were pretty set on it. Now there are only two divisions where there are like winning in complications. There are a few more games going on which will determine seeding, but let's start with the games which will determine who get into the playoffs. I think, with no disrespect to the four teams we're about to talk about in this next 5-10 minutes, they're the sort of teams that we look at and go, they're probably not going to win another game, even if they win in week 18. But we'll start on the Saturday games because this episode comes out on Saturday afternoon. So these will be the games on the day. The first one, the big one, is in the NFC, in the South. And it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers have had this remarkable string this season of alternating wins and losses. They lost to the Seahawks last time. Before that, it's win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Win, loss. I think it's 8 or something in a row now that they keep alternating, which is good omen for them because they lost last time out, and they'll be fancying themselves against the Buccaneers, who, of course, they beat on the 21st of December. It hasn't been long since they beat the Bucs. We talked last time about the disappointment in the drop-off of Baker Mayfield this season, from looking like an MVP candidate in those first 5-6 weeks to just making some bad plays now, unfortunately. I lean the way of the Panthers. I've been a big advocate of the Panthers on this podcast throughout the season. So that's where I'm putting my money in this one. Again, I don't think they then win another game in the playoffs, but I would like to see them get in for the first time since 2015. But I find it hard to rule out the Bucs because they seem to, they've been there, they've done it recently.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the Buccaneers and you're thinking it's at home. They've got to go out and get this win. But I mean, they were sat at 6-2. They look great. They'd done it all whilst being really quite injured as well along the way. And then since their bye week, they've just fallen apart. I mean, one win, and that one win was a one-score game against the Arizona Cardinals, who have had their own issues. So it's not exactly kind of a glorious win, and even in that, some of their defeats have been kind of blowouts, like the Los Angeles Rams loss. So I'm really looking at two different teams. The Panthers have been inconsistently consistent or consistently inconsistent, depending on which way you want to look at it. And the Buccaneers have just fallen apart. And I think Todd Bowles is potentially coaching for his job in this game. So yeah, I lean the way of the Panthers as well, unfortunately for Todd and the Buccaneers.
The interesting stat in this game, outside of obviously who wins and gets in, is, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but it's the battle of the offensive first round wide receivers. Because
yes,
when the Bucs were flying, and you said 6-2 or whatever they were pre-bye, looking like real playoff, even deep playoff contenders, Emeka Egbuka was flying. And we talked yesterday, I think it was, on a bit of a chat about how JSN's form has slightly tailed off in the second half of the season. He's not been bad by any stretch of the imagination, but the level he was playing at, I think is fair. I mean, it would have been ridiculous if it continued at that level. But Egbuka started the season on fire, had a few 100-yard games. He had 3 games where he went for over 100 yards. But the last 7 games, he hasn't topped 64. He hasn't topped 5 catches in that time as well. And that's not all on him. He obviously had Mike Evans coming back. He had Chris Godwin coming back. I think a lot of the reason people didn't want to draft him in fantasy leagues, particularly redraft leagues, was the threat of the players like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It was the same with JSN in his rookie year.
Yeah.
But because of that now, he is still the leading receiver in terms of yards as rookies, but he is 1 yard, just a solitary yard ahead of Ted McMillan, who was obviously on the other side of this game, and similarly has slowed down a little bit. It's not as much, he's not been involved. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's got 3 touchdowns in the last 5 games, 5 in the last 6 games. So he has been involved, but 3 of the last 4 games, he's only had 2 catches or fewer. It's really dropped. He only had 5 yards against the Seahawks, albeit a very, very good Seahawks team. A good game against the Bucs 2 weeks ago, but then before that, 25 yards, 43 yards, 35 yards. So these are 2 players who've sort of dropped off in form, and there isn't an award for the best offensive rookie of the year, obviously, but it's not based purely on how many yards you get. But I know deep down these 2 players will be wanting to pit the other one to this.
It's been a really strange season for rookies, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, because I don't think there's been a single, and call me out on this, I don't think there's been a single offensive rookie who's put together an entirely good season for the entire time, right? I mean, you look at someone like Ashton Genty, he's tried. You can't fault the kid for trying. Just hasn't been particularly impressive as rookie seasons go. And yeah, like you say, Ted McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, 1 yard separates them. What I will say is that both of them are in good good standing, because both of them are 2 and 3 respectively yards ahead of Jerry Rice's rookie season. So not a bad person to beat. But you look at this list, I mean, there are some guys that then fade to complete irrelevance. They're right behind CeeDee Lamb's rookie season right at the moment. So I think it'll be interesting. I think if you're looking at who's probably going to win this, McMillan against the Buccaneers slightly injured secondary, whereas Egbuka is going to have to face off with JC Horn and Mike Jackson, who have been having a sensational year as a tandem. I'm probably looking at this and thinking, T-Mac's probably going to get this wide receiver, if you can call it a crown, whatever it is. But there's a chance that might be enough for him to claim Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Funnily enough, the other person who's in this Offensive Rookie of the Year discussion really strongly in it is also in the NFC South. Apparently, it's the division of the offensive rookies, but the player who's I just published an article, and not the one I was writing, that I subbed and published from Steve, who's our Saints writer, and I couldn't believe it. I had to double check this. I thought he was having me on at first, but the Saints went undefeated in December. The whole month, they won every game they played in December. I think it's 5 games in a row they've now won for the first time, only the 5th time, I think, in the franchise history. No, 3rd time in the franchise history that they've won 5 in a row in December. This is a team we all forgot about. They started so badly. It was always going to be a long-term rebuild after Derek Carr went down. Tyler Shough didn't get a look in to start the year, but he is suddenly like the second favorite to win this award, just behind Ted McMillan in the odds to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, considering the resurgence he's had, or he's brought about for the Saints, has been quite remarkable. But I think Ted McMillan deserves it over the course of the season.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Well, the Shough point is very interesting, because when he took over the reins from Spencer Rattler, a lot of people didn't even think that Rattler deserved to really be benched. He'd not gone out and won games for the Saints necessarily, but he was actually playing relatively efficient football for certainly in the early parts of the season. He wasn't turning the ball over all that much. I think kudos to Kellen Moore, because Kellen Moore has got that team for some reason playing to win games when they really don't need to be. I mean, you look at it, like you said, they've won their last 4 games, and are undefeated in the month of December, why? Like you said, they're rebuilding. So Kellen Moore is safe as a head coach. He's unlikely to have been jettisoned after 1 year. Um, you've got players like you've got relatively older players. You've got Chris Olave, who is probably looking at it going, what I don't want to go through a rebuild. And somehow they're putting together some really good performances, some really good wins. Admittedly, these wins have come against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers, the New York Jets, and the Tennessee Titans. So not really kind of pedigree teams this season, but the attitude from the Saints to go out and win those games is what's most impressive.
Yeah, I completely agree, and yeah, hats off to the Saints for doing that. This is a really bad part of me, and I know even as I'm going to say this now, I'm gonna come across really bad and get hate for this because it's Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley, because of what they did when they were at the Chargers and that season where it all went downhill in that game against the Raiders in overtime and all the rest of that. I just can't bring myself to want them to do well. And I know that makes me a bitter, vindictive person,
It does.
but I can't bring myself. And I actually really liked Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore. I was really, when they started at the Chargers and they had that bit of that gung ho, go for it on fourth down attitude, I was here for it.
Yeah.
And then it just went so badly wrong. Now to see them doing well, as you say, albeit against teams that they should be beaten, or teams that it's not like, oh wow, they went and knocked off the Broncos or really good teams. But yeah, I can't I can't bring
You can't bring yourself to do it.
I
It's
can't.
fine. This is the same as when I see Rex Ryan be linked with a job, and I think, do it. Somebody do it, because I really want to see what happens. Not because I necessarily want to see Rex Ryan thrive. Let's put it that way. So, look, a little bit of pettiness. It's not the be all and end all, but I think maybe we should exercise your Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore demons this off season so we can build a bridge and get over it.
Yeah, maybe so. We might have to do an episode where I go through therapy to get past that game at the Allegiant Stadium all those years ago. So yeah, we're both on the side of the Panthers in that one. The last game of the week, or the other division where it's relevant, is the AFC North. Likewise, we don't feel there's any chance either of these teams are going to win a playoff game. But I think there's one team which are far more likely to. The game is the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Baltimore Ravens, which is it Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football? It gets all a bit strange, the scheduling in the final week of the season.
Sunday Night Football. Yeah.
There is no Monday night game, is there, this
No.
week? So yeah, Sunday Night Football, Steelers against the Ravens. The two teams, the Steelers are currently in the playoffs. They're the fourth seeds with a 9-7 record. They're trying to avoid going 9-8 and just fulfilling the prophecy and the meme which they have become. The Ravens are a game behind 8-8, but obviously would have the tiebreaker if they win this game and would get in. I find it really interesting on the NFL's next gen stats that the Steelers, who are currently in the playoffs, have a 40% chance of making it, and the Ravens have an 80% chance. That shows the sort of vibe at the moment that people are fancying the Ravens to do this. It is at M&T Bank Stadium, which the Ravens are much better at home. I just feel like the Ravens, as I just alluded to, of both of these teams, if the Ravens get into the playoffs, you don't feel excited about the fact you have to go to play the Ravens, even though that they would be the away team. Oh, no, they wouldn't. They'd be the home team as well. You would not feel excited to go to M&T Bank Stadium, one of the loudest stadiums in the league, with a MVP caliber quarterback, not this season granted, but a player with the skills of Lamar Jackson, a bulldozer in Derrick Henry. This is not an exciting team to play, whereas the Steelers, with all due respect to Aaron Rodgers, had an illustrious career, brilliant player, a future Hall of Famer, all the rest of it, that you can give him as many titles as you want. But he's not offering that same threat that Lamar's offering, is he?
No, he's not. I think just to kind of put a point on that as well. I do think this game is in Pittsburgh, by the way. They have already played in Baltimore, and Pittsburgh went to Baltimore and won at the beginning of December. I think the problem with the Ravens is trying to predict what version of the Ravens came out and played a game at any point. Was Snoop Huntley playing? Was Lamar Jackson playing? Did they have a defensive line? What was Roquan Smith doing? It's just a bit, they've been 4 or 5 different teams over the course of the season. So I do think that this one's going to be interesting. It is in Pittsburgh, but the Ravens are 3.5-point favorites, which is fun with Vegas. That really shows that they're probably favored more by a score on neutral ground. And like you say, I think part of that is to do with the fact that there's probably two question marks. One is the fitness of TJ Watt, and apparently he's leaning towards playing. I think it's the last game of the season, and if he sits out and they go home and they don't make the playoffs, then you'll think we should really roll the dice on him. The other one is Derrick Henry in the cold is just rolling right now, and I love to see it because that man is kind of just forging his way towards the Hall of Fame, and it's great to see. And I do think that's probably going to be what does it in this game. Lamar Jackson sounds like he's going to play as well, which regardless of what version of him we get, is better if he's out there than not. I just think that on the back of Derrick Henry, that the Ravens will probably get this done. But yeah, it seems strange to be saying that about a Ravens team that's been so poor and away from home, and they're also not leading the division right now. So there you go.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm completely wrong about where the game is, as you've pointed out. I read the Adams, our Ravens writer at HuddleUK, his preview of this weekend, and he said that to get into the playoffs they'll have to beat the Steelers in their own house, and I read that as in the Ravens' own house, not the Steelers' own house. So that's where
it's in someone's house.
I'm not blaming Adam. That's totally on me. That's not his fault. You mentioned Derrick Henry, my favourite podcast, other than the HuddleUK podcast, obviously, which you can listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Got to get the plugs in where you can. Is the Fantasy Footballers podcast, which is massive, huge podcast. I'm sure loads of you have watched. But they have loads of nicknames for different players, and Derrick Henry they call the Yeti because of just every time it starts snowing, wherever you are. If there's snow in America, Derrick Henry starts rolling, and he just turns so good in the month of December. I don't know the numbers behind it, but he is always better at this time of year, which is incredible for, what is he now, 31, 32 maybe? He is defying all sort of metrics and logic about running back age. 31. Oh, he's 32 in this weekend. Happy birthday to, and on Sunday as well. Oh, that's it. Put the house on the Ravens. Derrick Henry scoring 3 touchdowns.
Derrick Henry on his birthday.
I've never been more sure of anything in my life that Derrick Henry is going to rumble in at least 2 touchdowns now against the Steelers on his birthday to send the Ravens into the playoffs. That feels like it was written.
He's had a remarkable career. Part of, I think, what from a physical standpoint, obviously there's a lot of talk about how well he looks after his body. He didn't really feature all that heavily through the first 2 seasons of his career. And I think that really, he played running back 2 behind DeMarco Murray for his first 2 seasons in Tennessee. And I think that has really helped prolong his career. You don't often see a rookie running back nowadays get drafted, certainly with this pedigree that he did coming out of college, and sit for 2 seasons. But most teams are trying to roll them straight out. They want them to be as pro ready as possible to get the best value out of their rookie contract, knowing that they will probably have a shortened career. So yeah, Derrick Henry may well be the last. You talk about being a Yeti, might be a bit of a unicorn at this point. We're not going to see another player like it.
Well, I certainly don't know of one. Just to go back to this point, there's more statistics that will back this up. But from week 2 to week 10, so getting into the start of November, Derrick Henry had 4 touchdowns in those 8 weeks. Since week 9, from week 9 to week 17, so a similar time frame, he's up to 10 in the same frame. So cold weather. Right. Cold weather back Derrick Henry. That's the odds. And for someone who's had a supposedly down year, to go back to fantasy football, he's the running back 7 in fantasy football at 31 on a average team that the Ravens have been this year. So he seems completely ageless, and I think he is a big reason why I would back Baltimore. He just had 4 touchdowns. The guy's a freak, and I mean that in a good way. He's insane.
He is.
So but hey, look, the Steelers have played some really good games this year. I'm not discounting them and completely ruling them out. That's yet another winning season for Mike Tomlin, who's that record in itself is unbelievable. It's not as glamorous of as winning 14, 15 games in the season, but to never have a losing record as a head coach is quite something. So a tip of the cap to him as well. Those are the 2 divisions where the games this weekend have an interest in who makes the playoffs, but they're not the only interesting games in terms of the playoff ramifications. The other game today, technically Sunday morning, but this podcast comes out on Saturday. It's Saturday night for those brave enough to stay up to the 1 a.m. kickoff. Is the NFC West, which has been, by my accounts, the best division or the most fun division to watch in the NFL this year.
Hands down.
Didn't think I'd be saying that at the start of the year, but here we go. Another thing that, much like the Panthers, that I've been saying for months is that Kyle Shanahan, for me, is the coach of the year. I've just looked up the odds for that. He's currently second favourite, according to DraftKings, behind Mike Vrabel, which is understandable. On FanDuel, he is the favourite just over Mike Vrabel. So those are the two who are clear. Mike McDonald and Liam Cohen are the two who sort of in the each way places, if you want, for the coach of the year odds. But for me, it's Kyle Shanahan. Mike Vrabel's done an excellent job, excellent job. The Patriots have gone from the worst team in the division last year to the best team in the division this year. Sorry to you, I know you're a Bills fan.
It's fine.
The evil empire has returned.
We should have been better.
Yes, but the 49ers, with all of their injuries they've had, they were starting Mac Jones for a week, and I think Mac Jones did himself a real favour this year. I think he might walk into a starting job at some point in the next year or 2 years, based on what he did.
Unfortunately for Mac Jones, he's signed into more than a 1-year deal, because he must be watching what Malik Willis is doing in Green Bay, thinking, well, hang on a minute, that was me earlier on in the season, but I'm tied down to this deal for longer. So good trade bait for John Lynch to potentially move on at some point. He is better than a backup. I think we can agree. I think if you look at the percentage completion for quarterbacks that have started more than one game in the NFL, I'm pretty sure you will find Brock Purdy and Mac Jones both feature in the top 5, which is testament to the scheme in particular that Kyle Shanahan is operating. And when you look at who's catching passes, other than Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle's been a little bit banged up at points, but when you look at the entourage that they're doing it with, it's not exactly pedigree kind of wide receivers. No disrespect to Ricky Pearsall, who admittedly also hasn't been around that much, or the broken body of Juwan Jennings, who also hasn't been around that much. But I mean, he's doing this with Kendrick Bourne, who couldn't catch a gig in New England with the Patriots, and they don't exactly have unbelievable wide receivers. So, I mean, yeah, the job Shanahan's done is unbelievable. If I had to, it's going to make me sound really sour and bitter, but apparently that's what the hosts of this show are, sour and bitter about other coaches. But Mike Vrabel has taken a team that Gerard Mayo should have had performing better. When Gerard Mayo took over that Patriots team, that was not a bad defense to take over. It'd been a good defense seasons prior. He managed to torpedo it. They then get the best schedule you can possibly imagine. And so Vrabel has picked up a team that should have been better than what it was last year. He has done a great job. He's punished the situation, and that's all you can really ask a coach to do. But yeah, for me, Kyle Shanahan has kind of spit in the face of his division when, the Rams look like Super Bowl contenders on a good day and are frustrating on a bad day, and the Seahawks are, terrifying on both sides of the ball. And Shanahan's right there. Like, this would be the most unlikely of division wins if he can pull it off.
We'll get into what the game actually means, but just to go to your point of the percentage leaders in the NFL, only Drake May has a higher completion percentage than Mac Jones for quarterbacks who've thrown 200 or more passes this year. So that's a ridiculous achievement. Do you know, having looked this up, ignoring people, well, the best technical completion percentage goes to Tanner McKee, Eagles backup, who's a perfect 3 for 3.
He's starting this weekend, so I doubt that's going to stay the same.
I doubt that. The other people who have a perfect 100% completion rate obviously are not quarterbacks, but you've got. Can you name any? Can you name any?
Breece Hall.
Breece Hall, very good. 1 for 1. Yep.
Is Tyler Warren in there?
Tyler Warren. He's not on this list, so he's clearly thrown. He's not. I've only got the 100% completions.
He has thrown an incompletion, hasn't he? Because he very wisely threw it away on a failed 2-point conversion.
The others are harder names I give you. We've got Jalen Waddle, Nick Mullins, obviously, is a quarterback, DJ Moore, Austin McNamara, who, if my memory serves me correctly, is the kicker, the punter who did the fake punt for the Jets, and it is, just looked it up. He's 1 for 1 this season. Cam Akers is as well. And the other one, which I did know because I remember watching it and losing my mind, was Gunnar Olszewski, who threw one to, I think it was Wan'Dale Robinson against the Lions a few weeks ago for the Giants. No, he threw it to Jameis Winston.
Yes, he did. Yes, because
Yes.
it was a Jameis to Gunner to Jameis.
To Jameis, yeah. So Gunnar Olszewski's also got it. But the highest completion percentage of a quarterback who's thrown 30 or more passes is Malik Willis, which, and not by like a small margin, he is at 86% completion percentage this season, which is remarkable. And the ones who are just behind him are Tyler Huntley, Tyson Bagent, with our Welsh connection, Mason Rudolph and Joe Milton. Now, obviously, all of those quarterbacks have played significantly less snaps. And it is a massive nod to Drake May that he is then next on this list. So, there's a reason he's in the MVP conversation. And back to this game, back to the importance of this game. The 49ers can still be the number one seed, is the headline of this game, which is remarkable, which is why I was talking about Shanahan and all the greatness he's done. If the 49ers beat the Seahawks this week, or later today, they will both have a 13-4 record, and the 49ers will clinch the division and the number one seeds on the tiebreaker, which is insane when you consider everything they've been through this season. I don't think they're going to do it. I still back the Seahawks to win today or tomorrow, depending on which way you want to argue
when you're listening.
When you're listening, it could have been yesterday. But I still fancy the Seahawks to win this game. But it is in Santa Clara, and I wouldn't be feeling overly confident in, if you're a Seahawks fan. Maybe the momentum's with the 49ers. I don't know. I just really like what the Seahawks have done this year, and they seem to have a bit of that Kansas City luck magic that the Chiefs carried last season. The Seahawks seem to have a bit of that this year, whether it's like ridiculous 2-point conversions or just other results for other teams just not quite going their way, like the Rams losing to the Panthers and things like that in the division. Everything seems to have fallen well for Seattle this year. And because of that, I feel like it's their year to win the NFC.
I think obviously Mike McDonald is kind of the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan tree slayer, isn't he? It's why the Seahawks really wanted him as their head coach, and he's got a pretty good record of kind of shutting them down. I don't really think it's going to be one on that side of the ball so much. I think Brock Purdy has got this wonderful brand of just reckless football. It's amazing that he's Mr. Irrelevant in the draft all those years ago, because he plays like someone who has got like a God-given right to stay in the league, when in reality most players who are the last pick of the draft would play maybe within themselves for fear of doing something wrong. Brock Purdy's kind of mentality, much like his mentality is very much just ultra aggressive, push it down the field, and it works. I think the big shame is that we never saw a Mac Jones play in this system, because I think what Mac Jones has shown with his kind of accuracy and completion percentages, I think he'd do a wonderful job in San Fran, but we'll probably never see it now. But that's a sliding doors moment with the whole Trey Lance experiment, which now the Chargers get to see the benefit of this week against the Broncos defense, which is going to be fun, isn't it?
Well, it's a nice segue. I mean, we could talk about that 49ers game for ages, but and not because I'm a Chargers fan, but because I wanted to talk about briefly the moral, the ethics of the NFL, if you want, because the Chargers, because of the way it's set up, if the Texans lose to the Colts this week, if the Chargers went and beat the Broncos, which they've already done this season, they were the last team. Were they the last team to do it? Maybe. But the Chargers could still be the fifth seed and then have to take on either the Steelers or the Ravens, which is a far more exciting prospect than having to go to the Jaguars or the Patriots. But Jim Harbaugh, the part of this is going to be the fact that Justin Herbert broke his hand a few weeks ago. That all makes sense. But they're resting Justin Herbert for this game, which, with the greatest respect to Trey Lance, he was a top 5 pick, wasn't he, for the 49ers a few years ago?
He was.
Well, highly, highly rated coming out of college. I have more confidence in him as a backup as a Chargers fan than I did in the likes of Easton Stick, whose name still makes me feel slightly nauseous. But by playing Trey Lance in this game against the Broncos, who have one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league, you give the Broncos a win here, really, in week 18, which as a result means the Patriots can't be the number one seeds. If I'm a Patriots fan, I'm looking at the Chargers going, come on, do us a favor here. But the Chargers also in doing so are basically surrendering to the fact that they are going to drop to the 7th seed, because I think the Bills, well, unless something goes dramatically wrong, the Bills aren't going to be losing to the Jets this weekend. So
You hope so.
the Chargers are kind of accepting the fact that they're going to. I don't know if there's any gamesmanship here. This is what that comes down to. Is there some gamesmanship here with Jim Harbaugh saying we got battered by the Jags earlier in this year? If we go to Jacksonville, everyone's going to be talking about 2 years ago, where they were however many points up and lost, and I've repressed that game. Or do we not deliberately lose this game, but put Trey Lance in, rest Justin Herbert, and then go play a Patriots team that have only beaten 2 teams with above 500 record this season? And there's logic there, isn't there? I mean, you're not meant to do it, but there is logic to that.
There's massive amounts of logic, and the other part of this is depending on how many players you rest, and not just rest, but you've got the choice going into the week, knowing how much rest to not just give them for the game, but to give them through the week in terms of practice. So for someone like Justin Herbert, who's nursing a bit of a hand, he's been rocked however many times at this point. I've lost count, but it's almost at a historic level in terms of the sacks, which admittedly, the Chargers have tried in signing 2 all-pro tackles, but obviously both of them going down for large, if not the entirety of the season, has just meant that Justin Herbert's back to, unfortunately, where he was prior to them signing 2 kind of historically good tackles. So I think in that respect, you go into the playoffs knowing you're going to have to beat the best. You may as well just simply take the bye week as almost like a cheat bye week, rest your players up, because the data shows that the first seeds have made Super Bowls so much more often than non-bye week seeds since we moved to a single bye week. So with that said, if you can almost cheat your way into a bye week by just simply writing off the last week, then good for you, because teams that are going in playing that game really, really tough, like the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, are going to potentially, if the Steelers or even the Ravens, actually, both quarterbacks are an injury risk. One because he's been injured all season in Lamar Jackson, the other because he's a 42-year-old statue in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you go back and watch the Cleveland game, for example, with Myles Garrett basically hunting down Aaron Rodgers, it was like something out of a David Attenborough kind of documentary. So I think when you look at that, I completely am on the side of Harbaugh and the Chargers hierarchy here. You could play your top players, and Nick Bonito could end your season. That's the cold reality of it. Rest those players, go into the playoffs, play the game that matters, and I have no issues with that. But I do know that as a kind of a fan of records and such, it is a shame that Herbert's not gonna break the record of Peyton Manning that you so badly wanted him to break.
I really wanted him to break this record because he gets under fire so much, Justin Herbert, and I am worried because of the offensive line that the Chargers are going to once again go to the playoffs and he won't once again not win a playoff game, Justin Herbert. And then suddenly all this good narrative of what he's done this year with no offensive line and the fact he's dragged the Chargers to, being a really competitive team, that'll all go out the window. It will disappear in a flash if they lose in the playoffs. It'll be like, Justin Herbert, he still can't win games. It's going to be like, if you've seen how much time he had to throw, nobody questions Patrick Mahomes. You watch that game in the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter how good you are as a quarterback. If you're under pressure and you've got 2.5 seconds to throw every single snap, you're never going to win a game. Yeah. And so the fact that Justin Herbert has won some, crazy games this year, it's not a surprise. The games they've lost, people go, the Chargers lost to the Giants. I'm like, the Giants have got one of the best pass rushes in the whole NFL. Yeah. It's not a surprise to me that the Chargers lost that game. The Houston Texans, exactly the same. The Chargers haven't lost many games this year, but it's always when they've come up against teams with really good pass rush. And that's why I was looking at going, I'd love to play the Ravens because they don't get many sacks at all. Mm-hmm. But I also then totally agree and, resting Justin Herbert. Jason Kelce was talking about it on Monday Night Football last week where they asked him about it. And he was like, rest the whole team. Rest the whole team. Have a bye week. He's like, did you see how bad the Chargers were pre-bye when they got battered by Jacksonville? And did you see how good they were post-bye when they won 7 out of 8?
Rest
It's
everybody.
yeah. So I think I would be very surprised if you see Lad McConkey out there, if you see Amarian Hampton, any of the stars on offense, and even on defense, Derwin James, Dale Henley, they're not going to see the field in this game. And the Broncos, like they did last season in Week 18 against the Chiefs, who rested everyone and started Carson Wentz, are going to cruise to a win. And I don't mind. I don't mind.
Yeah.
There's part of me that is really happy if we go to play the Patriots instead of the Jags, because I don't want to relive a couple of years ago. So I'm okay with that. You mentioned Myles Garrett. You keep teeing up the next topics as if you're doing it on purpose. Justin Herbert, just quickly to end on your point. Yeah, Justin Herbert has the record for the most passing yards for a quarterback in his first season, second season, third season, fourth season, fifth season. And he was on course to do it in his sixth season, which would have been obviously this year. He is 65 yards behind Peyton Manning, and he's been rested. So Peyton Manning will hold the record for the most in the first 6 seasons. Justin Herbert won't be breaking that record. I'll shed a little tear for that. 65 yards short. If you go back in the season, you look at a few of the deep shots taken to whoever it might be, Quentin Johnston or Lad McConkey. If just two of those were caught, he would have broken the record. But that's how, he missed 2 drives with a broken hand. Comes in for those 2 drives, might well have broken the record. But we were talking about, I'm not sure if it was on a podcast episode, but we were talking about Saquon Barkley before and how much I love Saquon Barkley because he has absolutely no interest in his own records, in his own personal
he's just complete
numbers. He's a complete professional and he's only there for the team. He sprinted down the sideline to hug and cheer with Tank Bigsby when Tank Bigsby got into the end zone a couple of weeks ago. And I was just like, what a guy. This is absolutely what I want on my team. And Justin Herbert's exactly the same. He doesn't care. I don't think there's a single part of him who's like, he'd be like, it'd be nice. But he's like, rest me and let's beat the Patriots or the Jags and give me that over the record, personal record every day of the week.
There's a few players like that. I mean, it really smacks of kind of Barry Sanders. Back in the 90s, he was really not interested in breaking any of the records, and he kind of fell. Some say he fell out of love with football, and that's why he retired. But ultimately, he could have gone on and broken the records and probably put distance between him and Emmitt Smith. And that record, as we now probably can imagine, is going to stand the test of time. But Sanders decided he didn't want to do that, and that's because for him, unlike Saquon Barkley, he wasn't able to kind of experience some of the kind of team victories and put the team on his back in the same way. So bit of shame that. But I've got a lot of time for a player that isn't really interested in the personal accolades, and I'm sure Herbert's probably not too worried if it means they can win a playoff game.
Yeah, there was a game last year, wasn't it, where Barkley had something like 200 yards and he was about 3 yards off his own records, and he was sat on the sideline with Sirianni, and Sirianni was like, look, do you want to go do it? And he was like, no, let the other guys, I think he said, let the other guys eat. He was just like, I don't care. I do not care. Let the other guys get their snaps and improve, so we'll be better as a team. And I love Barkley. Even he's had a quiet year, but I just love that mentality. Myles Garrett, we're talking about records. Yeah. He's the one who kind of everything's been talked about for the last few weeks. He didn't have the best start to the season. Not like he didn't have a bad start to the season by any stretch of the imagination. This is Myles Garrett we're talking about. But it started off okay, and then the middle period of the season was insane in terms of sacks. He got 1 against Miami, then 5 against the Patriots, 1 against the Jets, 4 against the Ravens, 3 against the Raiders. These are all in consecutive games. But then since we got to the point where, he's about to get there, the last 2 games, only half a sack in 2 games, when before that he'd gone 8 straight weeks, I think, with a full sack. Yeah. So I don't know if that's pressure. I don't know if that's teams just being really horrible and just double teaming him and triple teaming him.
It really is.
Every single snap. I don't care who the teams are. I love seeing records being broken. And I'd love to see him do it this week because I think he's had a great season. And I don't love the fact he sort of sold himself out a little bit for money this offseason by saying, I'm not, I want to go win. And then the Browns went, here's an absolute boatload of money. And he went, do you know what? Actually, winning's not important to me. Loyalty is. Yeah. But only you can make that decision as a player. We can't put himself in that mindset, but I do want to see him break it. I think it would be a great moment. And what better team to be playing to try and do it than the Cincinnati Bengals, who can't protect Joe Burrow to save their life. So I hope he does it. And you were looking at the numbers, because it's particularly impressive for Myles Garrett, isn't it? Because all the time he's playing teams who are just having to run the ball because they're always behind.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, this Cleveland team has, was it 3 wins on the season? Um, so they're pretty much always playing from behind, which generally means that teams will simply firstly play less plays as they run out the clock more, and specifically run the ball more. So there's less pass plays, with the opportunity for you to really kind of pin your ears back, tee off, and just target the quarterback, knowing that quarterback is dropping back. And what's amazing about Myles Garrett's season this season is that he has faced to date 448 passing plays, which is 47% of the team's defensive plays that they've faced. Now, very few players in this kind of hierarchy of single sacks kind of seasons have a percentage as a pass first league now. We see passing plays more than we see running plays. So it's very rare that a team will face more running plays than passing plays. But obviously Cleveland being one of them because of the game script they find themselves in. And it means that ultimately when you look at the efficiency, which obviously no one's giving out awards or records for efficiency, when you do look at the efficiency, he should have broken this record a while ago if he had faced the same number of snaps as, say, Michael Strahan, or TJ Watt, who are obviously currently the tied record. If he'd played the same number of pass snaps as Michael Strahan had, he'd be on 25.5 sacks already, and he'd be kind of 3 clear of them. Shaquille Barrett, who's in the top 10 with his season from 2019. This one I love because he's faced by far the most passing kind of defensive snaps. If Myles Garrett played in that defense, he'd have had a 32.5 sack season, which is insane. But that's the parity that we're kind of lacking. Myles Garrett has turned kind of 4.9% of his pass kind of defensive snaps have been turned into a sack, which is the next highest is Michael Strahan with 4.3%. It's just, he's just sacking players at an incredible rate. And I think it'd be a real shame if he doesn't do it. I will say the Buffalo Bills were one of those teams that basically rolled out to the right. Allen just rolled out to the right every single play. And then Aaron Rodgers did the same as well. There's even talk that the Steelers basically game planned so much to avoid Garrett breaking the record against them that it actually just tanked their offense to such a level that Cleveland got the win against them, which has then ultimately maybe cost them the divisional title and a playoff berth, which would be an insane thing to do. So you've got to hope that that wasn't the case. But they did have to try and move a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers away from Myles Garrett. So I don't blame them so much for that. But yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible season for him. I wish he was doing it on a different team. No disrespect to the Cleveland Browns, but just a team where they were in games more, and a bit like we've seen with Micah Parsons, who's been completely destructive for the Green Bay Packers, closing out games. Myles Garrett's not closing out games. Myles Garrett's almost getting consolation sacks at some point in the fourth quarter when kind of teams are putting in kind of half-assed shifts, which is just a big shame.
Yeah, completely right. That stat about Shaq Barrett, I love. That was the start of the upturn for the Buccaneers, wasn't it? I think it would have been Buccaneers in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that Tom Brady's first year there? No, that can't be right. That must be just before. Was that the season before Tom Brady?
Yeah, it was Jameis's final season, wasn't it? He was 2015 through to 2019, I think.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Good knowledge. The other, we sort of gave Drake May his flowers for his accuracy earlier. It's time for the other MVP odds. Although, losing to the Falcons on Monday Night Football, I'm sure would have taken a dent out of Stafford's odds. But Matthew Stafford, what a season. I mean, 42 touchdown passes is insane. He only has 8 interceptions as well on the season. If he has 2 more against the Cardinals, which you feel is quite, plausible, he will become only the 3rd player ever with 15 games in a season with multiple touchdown throws. There are more games now, obviously, than there have been in the past. Peyton Manning did it in 2013, and Dan Marino did it in 1984. So
What a season!
illustrious.
What a season that 1984 season.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a bad year, was it? I mean, it was all right. You'd take it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, Stafford will join Manning and Dan Marino for only the third player ever to have 15 games with multiple passing touchdowns. So even the likes of Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, they're not even in this list. Tom Brady is in the next list, though. The other record that Stafford could break is that if Stafford gets 3 touchdowns, which would be a few, but and then he will have, and also he has to have fewer than 2 interceptions in this game. But he would only be the third quarterback to have over 45 touchdowns with under 10 interceptions, joining Tom Brady. And can you name the other quarterback in this list?
The other quarterback with
more than 45 passing touchdowns in a season and fewer than 10 interceptions. They did it twice.
They did twice. That was Drew Brees.
No, it was Aaron Rodgers who did it with Green Bay in 2011 and then in 2020 more recently as well. So, Matthew Stafford, how many, we'll move on reasonably quickly. How many touchdowns do you reckon he throws against this Cardinals defense? Yeah, I reckon 3 is very plausible.
I think 3. I think probably the only thing that holds him back from that is I imagine Devontae Adams. I've not seen that he's going to be available. I've not seen him ruled out either, unless I missed it. But their red zone efficiency seems to have dropped a little bit without him, mainly because he's like the most targeted player in the NFL in the red zone. But I think they go out and get it. I think the Cardinals can't really put up much of a fight against it. And why would they? They've got nothing. They've got no skin in the game. And I think Stafford will probably go out and McVay will make it happen. So, and kudos to him because he's in a league where teams seem to now favor dual threat quarterbacks. Sorry. It just goes to show that if you just get someone who knows how to run an offense and is a precision passer, you don't need to be mobile. You just need to, play a really high standard, which I know sounds so simple when you put it like that, right? But it's quite nice to have these. If everybody was just a Lamar Jackson and a Josh Allen, then it would make the league a bit boring. So it's great seeing a character like Matthew Stafford kind of really put a exclamation point on what is undoubtedly going to be a Hall of Fame career.
I know that I was messaging you guys about it at the time, but in the fantasy final of my work league, I was against Matthew Stafford with 1.2 point lead with 20 seconds to go when they got the ball back in the, with 20 seconds left. And I was like, if he throws 1 first down, I'm done here. And there was a deep shot that was, probably was a defensive pass interference that didn't get called. There was what looked initially like an insane catch from Puka Nacua on the sideline, didn't get caught. He also missed a wide open Mumfield, I think, on the first down of that series, and it didn't go. I was honestly, some of the most my heart has raced watching a game.
Yeah.
I was like, any of these passes go, and I lose the championship after a phenomenal year. So, I'm glad for a quarterback who was so accurate. I'm glad he had 4 bad passes to end Monday Night Football. That was that did make me happy.
You should be more like me, Phil, and make sure that all of your fantasy leagues just don't go down to the final game. Because I was out of all of mine. Yeah, so don't put yourself through it. So
I was in 4 finals in week 17, and I won 2 of them. So I'll take 2. It's not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
The final milestone and player that I just want to touch upon, because he's a player who doesn't get a lot of flowers, but has had a very good year. And when I saw this statistic earlier this week, I was pretty baffled by it, really. It's Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, who, I remember watching that Jags game in London, and I know I've come back to it a few times, but they got dismantled by the Rams in that game, and they were dealing with injuries, and it was in London and all the rest of it. But they were awful that day. They showed a bit of fight back late on in the game, but that was mainly Travis Hunter balling out, who they then have lost. Jacoby Myers has been great since he's arrived, but Trevor Lawrence's season has been statistically very good.
Mm-hmm.
And the stat which cropped up in the NFL sends around some sort of stats to look out for each week was about Trevor Lawrence and his rushing ability, which was not something that had really crossed my mind this season. But if Trevor Lawrence gets another rushing touchdown this week, again, against the Titans, not an awful team to be playing if you're looking to get a record, but he would become just the 4th quarterback ever with 25 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns in a season. And that joins Josh Allen, who's done it twice, which isn't a massive surprise. Kyler Murray in that one great year in 2020, and Cam Newton in that even better year in 2015. And Trevor Lawrence would join that company.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to just bring that up just to sort of have a moment for Trevor Lawrence, who has taken the Jags to what's probably going to be the third seeds in the AFC this year. When going back to that Wembley game, I'm not sure what their record would have been at that point. Obviously, the Colts look like the team that were flying and we're going to run the division. Me and you both said on this podcast that we think the Jags and the Texans can both make the playoffs. What insight we have here at HuddleUK. Genius, really. I think the Texans have the longest win streak in the NFL currently, or second longest, 8 in a row or something like that. And the Jags have looked excellent as well. So, Trevor Lawrence never really hit the heights that we all expected him to coming out of college. But do you think it was a case of just bad coaching over the years? He's had undeniably awful coaching at times in Jacksonville. Yeah. Awful. Urban Meyer, Jacksonville fans probably hate the name. But Liam Cohen's come in. We kind of expected it to get a bit better because of what Cohen had done at Tampa Bay. But he's got the best out of Trevor Lawrence this year.
He has, yeah. I think we've seen the best version of him. I don't know if we've necessarily seen the best version that we'll ever get. I think many would probably arguably hope for him to have a season where the heights that we've seen from him are consistently over the course of the season. I think we were still a little bit rough to start the year, weren't we? As he was picking up. I'm very confident. I mean, you look at his how he started the season, his first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. His first 10 weeks of this season, he only had multiple passing touchdowns in 2 of them. And then since that point, other than last week against the Colts in a bit of a tight game, he's had 5 games with multiple, including that 5 touchdown game. So, 6 touchdowns if you include the one on the ground, which is obviously what he's going for in this record. He is the player. He's turning into the player that we hoped. I think what people need to really realize, and I think this goes with Matthew Stafford, it goes with the Malik Willis that we saw earlier, and it definitely goes with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert as well, who actually has been great from the start, but just because he just doesn't seem to win a single game at a certain point in the year, people seem to like to write him off. I think for me, people forget that quarterback is the most important position, and they are then very, very quick to dismiss whether or not a player is good or not. And I think that you can do irreversible damage to a quarterback if you do not have the right kind of situation for them to come into. I think Cam Ward has shown some excellent signs, and crucially hasn't shown really, really bad habits, which obviously can ultimately set him back, like we've seen with someone like Will Levis, who kind of kept rolling with some of those habits, unfortunately. Different pedigree of player coming out of college, I know. So I think what we're seeing with Trevor Lawrence is that over time, he will eventually get there. It's just, with bad coaching, and you look at someone like Baker Mayfield, for example, who just every season seems to get a new play caller. Just every season, it's like, oh, your offensive coordinator is gone again. Here's a new play caller, hired from within. So hopefully it's the same sort of scheme. But yet again, you're having to get used to all of these little nuanced elements. These sorts of things hold the most important player back. And obviously that then, massively impacts our perception of them. So, I think, kudos to Trevor Lawrence. He's had a great season. I really hope that this is kind of just the start of him now putting together a very, very elite kind of portfolio of evidence that we can kind of forget that he was a little bit slow to start his career, and we can put that down to coaching. And Pro Football Reference, which is obviously a website I frequent all too often, as I'm sure you do as well. They like to put some of the nicknames on, and Trevor Lawrence is the prince who was promised. I mean, I don't know who he was promised to or why people were promising people Trevor Lawrence, but I think that nickname kind of sums him up perfectly.
Yeah, I completely agree. The last 2 players who I just want to quickly just mention them before we move on to just a bit of fun at the end of the podcast. Puka Nacua can't break the record, but with 49 yards this week will be second on the list for receiving yards for a player through the first 3 seasons. This is a ridiculous statistic when you just consider how good Justin Jefferson was in those first 3 years. Because for 49 yards, Puka Nacua will go second. He'll overtake Randy Moss and Odell Beckham Jr. He's currently 4th in that with 4,115. Randy Moss is on 4,163 in second. And then you have to go up some 700 more yards to get to Justin Jefferson at 4,925. An absolutely insane statistic. But yeah, Puka Nacua can go second on that list behind Jefferson. And the other player who I wanted to mention, because we talked about him earlier, is Derrick Henry. And I forgot about this stat when we were talking about him. He only needs 31 yards on the ground, which you feel is a formality this week. But with 31 rushing yards, he will join Barry Sanders as only the second player in NFL history with 5 seasons of 1,500 rushing yards. So yeah, just endless Derrick Henry glazing on today's podcast. So that's sort of where we stand at week 18. The big games, there's obviously loads of other games, but the significance of them much more minor, as that's where we get to at this point of the season. It'll be interesting to see which coaches are fired at the end of the season. We'll be reacting to
Black
that.
Monday. Yeah.
Black Monday. Yeah, we'll be reacting to that on the next episode of the podcast. But just before we want to go, I saw a bit of a game that another NFL podcast was doing, so I'm completely ripping them off here. But I just wanted to pit me and Jake head to head. Before I tell you exactly what it is, Jake, I want you to pick 2 divisions, 1 from each conference.
I'll take the AFC East as a homer, and we'll go to NFC West because
NFC.
You seem to like them.
Okay, cool. Me and you are going to do a quick head-to-head draft.
Okay.
I want 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and a tight end. And we will obviously alternate picks here to create the best lineup. And you picked AFC East first. Would you like to go first or second for the AFC East?
I'll go second, please.
The second over pick. Okay. So in the first pick in the AFC East draft, I'm going to take my quarterback and I'm going to take Josh Allen.
I will take... God, why didn't I pick the AFC East now for this division? Because there are some bleak players. I can't believe I'm going to do it, but I'll take wide receiver. I'll take Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs is your first pick. Interesting.
Yeah, controversial, I know, but it's not we're not blessed with quality wide receivers in that division.
No, I'm going to stick with the wide receiver pool though, and even though a little bit older, I think I still back the talent, and I'm going to take Tyreek Hill as my first wide receiver.
Okay. I'll take my second wide receiver then, and I'll take Garrett Wilson, and the hope and prayer that he gets a quarterback finally, because he deserves one.
Yeah, that's absolutely justified pick. I'm going to take my running back next, and I'm going to go back to Buffalo and take James Cook as my first running back.
Okay. That's completely fair. I'll take Devon Achane.
That was who I was between. I don't think there's a bad option for those 2 personally. Yeah. So I need a wide receiver and a tight end. You need a quarterback and a tight end. So as we both need a tight end, I might go that way first. But it's not a tight end friendly division, this one. And I'd love to say Greg Dulcich, but I'm not going to do it. Because if I haven't, or you've not heard that on the podcast before, he was one of my he's going to be the best player in football, and didn't really go that way. Although he had a monster game in week 17. He is back. He's back. I'm telling you, next year, watch out for Greg Dulcich and that curly hair. I'm going to, do I want to go there? That's an interesting one. I think for my tight end, maybe controversially, I'm going to get slaughtered for this, but I think I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, okay. See, that's not where I thought you were going to go. I thought the ex-Charger was heading. I thought Hunter Henry was destined for you.
That was the other player I was between. I was between Dalton Kincaid and Hunter Henry.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going to be brave enough for Darren Waller.
No, it crossed my mind, but I didn't. Yeah, I did not for that. I also wasn't going to go for Mason Taylor, although he's had a reasonable rookie year for the Jets.
He has. I'll take Hunter Henry off the board then.
You'll take Hunter Henry. I think
Yeah.
that's fair with Dalton Kincaid not there. And then I need my second wide receiver, which I don't think I love this option, but I don't like the Bills wide receivers
Okay.
particularly. I'm not brave enough to take Matt Collins or Kayshon Boutte here. So I think I'm just going to prey on the Dolphins wide receiver core
Good
and
God.
go back to Jalen Waddle.
So you're rolling out with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in this
I,
fantasy team.
I'm only got Dolphins and Bills in my team,
You do. Yeah.
which is hilarious because the Patriots have won the division. So that says something. I feel like you're going to be taking another Patriot here though and have a third one in your team.
Yeah, I'm not going to incite the hatred of the world by taking Tua Tagovailoa. No, I'll go Drake May at quarterback.
Okay, Drake May at quarterback. So my AFC East draft team is Josh Allen at quarterback, James Cook at running back, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins pair at wide receiver, with Dalton Kincaid at tight end. You have Drake May at QB, Devon Achane as your running back, Diggs and Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, and Hunter Henry as your tight end. So let us know who you think has the best team out of those two. We'll now move on to do the NFC West team to see if who this is going to be an interesting one because there's a lot of talent here. There's a lot more talent here spread around, and you also know a few of sort of my guys, for want of a better phrase here. So you get to pick first this time as well.
This is why I did it. This is why I kind of seeded the AFC East pick. I'm gonna take Jackson Smith and Jigba with the first pick.
That's fine. I don't hate that. I will stay in the same position because I can't allow you to have JSN and Puka Nacua. So I will take Puka Nacua as my first pick here in the NFC West draft.
Okay. I will go to tight end, and I will take.
Don't do it to me.
Our good friend Trey McBride.
I hate you so much. I knew.
You're welcome.
Okay, so
feel good about that.
Yeah, I would feel good about that. I feel okay about who I'm going to get at tight end, which also means because you've gone there early, I don't have to stick to that position. So
absolutely,
I can pivot elsewhere and take what for me is clearly the best running back in this division and take Christian McCaffrey.
Interesting. Let's take Kyren Williams. Let's take the running back off the board.
Kyren Williams for your team. I am going to now take my quarterback and pair my Puka Nacua with Matthew Stafford.
That's completely fair.
I imagine you might do something similar.
Yeah, but I'm going to wait on that. I will take Devontae Adams, I think. Yeah.
I think that's an absolutely fair pick. You're at a wide receiver, so to give myself a moment more to think about who I want at wide receiver, I will do the clear lock-in pick here of George Kittle as my tight end.
Easy.
And then you need to pick between Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, and Sam Darnold. Sorry, Kyler.
Yeah,
or Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett. Where is the love for that large human being? I'll take Brock Purdy. No disrespect to Sam Darnold, but just gotta love bit Brock.
Brock Purdy, and now it's an interesting option here because there's a few names that jump out to me here, and I'm not sure which one I like the most because you've got the expectation, the raw talent, the youth of the likes of Marvin Harrison.
Michael Wilson. He's had a great season.
He's had a great second half of the year. Yeah, you've got the veteran who's former Triple Crown winner in Cooper Kupp, who's at the Seahawks. There's a lot of love for Ricky Pearsall. Brandon Ayuk, I guess, is technically still there, but I don't think I can pick a player who hasn't played all year. See, I'm a little torn here. I think I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. and go on the promise of what might be moving forward. So I think this is an interesting one. So Brock Purdy, Kyren Williams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Devontae Adams with Trey McBride for yourself, Matthew Stafford, Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison, and George Kittle for myself. Once again, let us know which one of us do you think won. I'm pretty confident in my AFC East team. I back my AFC East team, but I think that NFC West is a very, very close call between the two.
I think both our NFC West teams take the AFC East teams. Like
Oh,
that,
without doubt.
that speaks volumes. But
Yes. I would have picked either of our NFC West teams against either of our AFC East teams in a heartbeat.
yeah,
So, I would agree with you. Well, best of luck to all of your teams listening. This has been a slightly shorter episode, although it's been longer than I planned it to be. We have been, as you say, we were doing this on holiday. We will always bring you the podcast when we can here at HuddleUK. I've been the host, Philip Marsh, as always. Jake, thank you very much for joining. Enjoy what is left of the regular season. One more weekend of it. I can't wait to get into all the playoff fun, and we can get really nervous about who the Bills and the Chargers are going to be playing for our respective teams next week. This has been the HuddleUK podcast. Thank you for listening. Wherever it's been, please remember to give it a like, a thumbs up, 5-star, wherever it might be. And we'll catch you next week on the HuddleUK podcast.